The oldest versions of fairy tales were actually the most accurate to human nature. In this case, it's the Frog Prince and Hansel and Gretel, which both showcases the brutality of female nature. The Frog Prince, she doesn't kiss him to break the spell, she kills him, right? And in Hansel and Gretel, it wasn't the stepmother that wanted to abandon her children, it was their real mother, right? Because what happens and during harsh times, women show how they really feel. And as time gets comfortable, men don't want to deal with it, they forget, and they start making softer versions of it, right? Now, we'll look at Hansel and Gretel first, right? Now, John Solo, he goes back. He's going to explain to us. Let's hear this.
The story starts by setting the scene. We're following a little boy and girl named Hansel and Gretel who live by a very large forest with their father and stepmother. The father was a woodcutter and made very little money, so the family was living on hard times for quite a while when a famine hit their region and left them with hardly any food and water. Late one night, the father was laying in bed, wide awake and stressed about how he was going to support his family, when his wife suggests that tomorrow morning they take his kids out to the forest and abandon them so they would have enough to eat.
Now, this is very typical. Right now, real life women abort their children whenever they don't want to bother with them. Or they actually kill them after they're born and cry postpartum depression. This is very pragmatic, real life female nature and behavior. Right? And notice the man is worried, he's got all the stress of what we're going to do, not the wife. That's standard as well, guys, isn't it? That's what leadership is. Leadership is you handle all the stress when problems come by.
No surprise the father does not want to do this because those are his babies, but his wife calls him a fool and says, look, it's either those two die or all four of us die. Which do you prefer? The woodcutter still wasn't convinced, but just like any manipulative spouse, she wouldn't let it go until he agreed.
Dude, she wasn't manipulative. She was dominant. This guy, he cared about his children, but he cared about having that woman around more. That's what. John, this is the way men are. If it's between his offspring and his mate, the man chooses the mate. He sacrifices his children to have that woman around. That's the fact. Now, you'll see him here admit that the oldest version, of course, it was actually the mother, the stepmother who did this.
Their first edition was published in 1812 in their collection called Children's and Household Tales, and there are some differences between them. Admittedly, most of them are just changes to the grammar and phrasing, but one alteration I think you'll find interesting is the transformation from the mother character into the stepmother. This happens in the fourth edition, and from then on, her character became harsher and more cruel to the children, while the father became increasingly whipped. I can definitely see why they made that change. It would have been a much weirder story if their real mother was that adamant about abandoning them.
No, it wouldn't have been weirder at all, dude. It would have been truthful. It would have been harsh, a harsh truth. And notice the difference in times, 1812 to 1857, right? So modern times were becoming easier. And so women were putting the mask on, saying, I love you, baby. And so, of course, the versions started switching up and being softer. Right. So notice when the truth is harsh, these guys use words like weird, guys. Okay. Now we'll get into the Frog Prince here and see what he has to say. And notice this princess shows true female nature through and through.
Falling down the rabbit hole. My name is Chris. This is my co-host Bartleby, and today we are going to Germany. The Frog Prince, or Iron Henry. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 3 daughters, and his youngest daughter was very beautiful. But near his castle, there was a very, very dark forest, and the princess loved to go into the dark forest to play with her little golden ball. She had a small ball that was made out of gold, and she loved to throw it up in the air and catch it. And she particularly loved to play this game of catch near the old well that was just on the edge of the forest. And one day she was in the forest laying by the old well, throwing the ball up in the air and catching it. And at one point she threw it up, and the ball arced, and she could not reach her hand out far enough to catch the ball, and it dropped into the well. This was absolutely devastating for the princess, and she started weeping because she felt like she had lost the ball forever the minute she saw it go down the well. And she ran up to the side of the well, and she looked over, and she couldn't even see the bottom. It was so far down, and she kept sobbing. She cried out, oh, if only I had my golden ball, I would give anything. I'd give my pearls, my fine clothes, even my golden crown, just if I could have my golden ball back. And at this moment, a little frog poked its head out of the well water. And the princess saw this little frog and was instantly like, ooh, go away. I don't need one of your disgusting kind here right now.
I do what I tell you guys, right? You know what? The frog, guys, is a stand-in for the low status guy. It's like the homeless man coming up and saying, what's wrong? Why are you crying, little girl? And they're like, get away from me, you stink.
And the prince said, hey, I don't need any of your fine clothes or pearls or your crown, but I can help you by diving down and getting your ball. And so
This is very typical. This is very male. I don't care about your wealth. It's you I care about.
suddenly she's very interested in this frog. And he says, I'll do this for you under one condition. But if you will accept me as your companion and let me sit next to you and let me eat from your little golden plate and sleep in your little bed and promise to love and cherish me, I'll fetch it for you.
The man wants intimacy. Wealth doesn't matter to a man. Not really. Wealth is a means to an end for a guy. It's guys gain status and wealth to get the girl. It's the woman, it's the girl who cares about wealth and status.
And the princess thought about this, and she thought, wait a minute. This frog is dependent on the water here in this well. There's no way that he can come to the castle and eat off my plate or sleep in my bed. I can accept this promise, and he'll never be able to make me pay for it. So she...
Wow, this is true female nature. It's like, I can make this promise because I know I don't have to pony up, right? By the way, the princess doesn't really lose anything, right? Just she has this disgusting frog next to her. That's the only thing she can't stomach.
He agrees, yeah. Please go get my golden ball. I agree to everything. So the frog dives down, swims into the water, retrieves the golden ball, and brings it up to the princess. And the princess grabs it right out of his hands the moment that he reaches the top. And she's so excited, and she turns and she starts running towards the castle. And the frog is screaming, hey, what about our promise? Wait for me. I don't have legs as long as yours. I can't run that fast. But she completely ignores him and runs all the way to the castle.
Perfect example of female nature right there. I got what I want. Who cares about keeping promises?
And shuts the door and doesn't give it another thought. The next evening, as she's eating dinner, the princess starts to hear a strange sound. It says wet footprints are coming up the stairs, plip, plap, plip, plap. And she starts to get kind of nervous, and then suddenly there's a knock on the door, and then she heard a voice. Princess, youngest daughter, come open the door. And she jumped up from the table, ran to the main entrance to the castle, pulled the door open, and there was the frog. And in disgust, she slams the door and runs back to the table and sits down.
Yeah, promises are for men, not for women.
But the king notices that she's flushed and looks out of sorts, and he says, "My daughter, what is wrong?" And she says, "There's a nasty frog outside. I was playing in the woods, and he retrieved my golden ball for me from the bottom of the well, and I promised him that he could be my companion, but I didn't think that he could leave the water in the well." So, yeah, and she starts eating again. And again the voice comes. "Princess, youngest daughter, open the door." And the king says, "So you promised this frog that he would be your companion, and he helped you."
Yeah, this is why we go on about single mothers, right? Because you might get a good father who says, hold it now. In my male mind, we keep our promises. I can think about consequences from the now, right? So a good father will make a girl keep her promises. Of course, the girl made a big mistake. She actually told the truth. If she had been one of the older daughters, she probably would have lied and said that frog is out harassing me. Send the guards out to crush it.
She says yes, and he says, "As royalty, we must keep our word. We have to keep our word. You need to go let him in."
Yeah, it was very important, right? Because so if you can't, all kingdoms have to deal with other kingdoms. If it becomes known that you don't keep your word, people won't deal with you, right? So the father understands this. Says, okay, sacrifice this one thing and keep our good name.
And the princess cries and screams, and the king's like, "No, none of it. Go let him in."
Wow, now this is what I call a father.
So she very sadly trudges to the main entrance of the castle, and she opens the door.
The average father today would never do that. He'd say, get rid of that homeless man. He'd call the police and tell them to get and lie and saying he was harassing his daughter, right? That's what the frog is, a homeless man to me, guys.
And she lets the frog in, and she walks back to the dinner table and sits down at the chair, and the frog on the ground says, "Princess, help me up." And she picks him up, and he says, "Now put me on the table." And she puts him on the table in pure disgust, and he says, "Now move your little golden plate over here."
You know what this reminds me of? This is like a woman who got married to some low status guy. He hasn't lived up to his potential to gain status, and now she wants to divorce him.
"So that we can eat together." And she moves the golden plate over, and the frog starts eating from the plate. And the princess is so disgusted that she can't touch any of the food on the plate. Finally, the frog has had his fill, and he says,
That smelly homeless man fell asleep on my couch. Now I got to fumigate the couch. I got to burn it.
"Okay, carry me to your room so we can sleep together in your little bed." And the princess doesn't move. And
this reminds me of some woman who like married some rich guy, and now he wants to get a wedding night, and she's like, "Hold it, we just got married so I can gain your resources. I didn't say I was going to spread my legs for you."
her father looks at her and says, "You've got to keep your promise." And she starts weeping and carrying this frog. She picks up the frog and she carries it all the way up the stairs and to her room. And she opens her door, steps into the room, and closes it behind her. And the frog says, "Okay, now put me by your little pillow." And she's terrified of the coldness of the frog, and she can't imagine having to sleep knowing that she might accidentally touch this frog. And she's had enough, and she takes the frog and she throws it as hard as she can against the wall, splatters the frog, completely destroys the frog.
Yeah, exactly. She would rather burn the world down than sacrifice anything of herself. Right. This is very true to female nature, right? This is again like the woman who got pregnant. Her husband wants the baby, and she agrees to it, even though she doesn't want to. And then at the end, when the baby's born, she shakes it to death or strangles it, and then cries postpartum depression.
Kills the frog. But the frog didn't fall down dead. Instead, when he fell down on the bed, he became a handsome young prince. Well, now in
People talk about the looks, but he became a prince, not a handsome young pauper, did he, guys? So he gained status, right?
Indeed, he did become her dear companion, and she cherished him as she had promised, and in their delight they fell asleep together.
She married that homeless man, and she was going to kill him, and then she found out he actually won the lottery. And now he was rich. He was richer than her. Now she loves him.
The next morning, they are to be married. A splendid coach shows up for the two of them, and they go out and get in the coach. And the coachman,
Yeah, no, that's as far as everything you heard, guys, all right? This princess, some guy, some low status man did a favor for her. She made a promise that she had no intention of keeping. Her father forced her to keep her word. And of course, she didn't keep her word. In the end, she'd rather destroy another human being than sacrifice anything of herself. Very typical female nature, real life behavior. Now, this is the important part as well, guys, right? This is modern man making excuses for female behavior being exposed right here. Now, listen to this guy. Ah, dang it. Come on, get up here.
kind of the princess test. How do you tell somebody's a real princess? And as I thought about this more and more, I guess it could be that a true princess wouldn't allow something disgusting near her.
See, this is altruistic, right? You know, this isn't just a woman being disgusted by an ugly guy, right? This has something to do with principles. Everyone,
Maybe that's it. Maybe the fact that she
there is no maybe, dude. This is just a female nature being shown out for us all. And we see it right now in real life, in modern day. Like these guys, they're always in denial.
kills the frog shows the prince that she would never stoop as low as befriending a dirty frog from the well.
Yeah, I wouldn't stoop to dealing with a low status man. Make me puke. You guys are so beneath me. Oh, that's you, by the way, whatever your real life name is. Jeez.
Who knows? Yeah, it's hard to read the ideology from the past, and that's another reason I wanted to talk about this one, is because
By the way, this guy, he collaborates with a bunch of other guys who are into this kind of YouTube thing. There are no women around, right? So, dude, you're the frog, right?
I think this is something that people run into with fairy tales all the time, and that is that we expect fairy tales to have a moral that seems obvious.
Yeah, but this isn't about a moral. This is just a description of real human behavior.
And one of the things that people run into when they read older and older fairy tales is the morals seem to be gone. And that's because these stories didn't always have morals.
Well, you can't be moral and actually be honest about human behavior, can you? Especially female behavior.
A lot of them eventually became tales of warning through oral storytelling, but they didn't always have morals. And this one, like I talked about with the last one, Urashima Taro, this one could have a moral that we can't see anymore because the ideology of the time that it was written is way past.
Yes, see, guys, you know, this woman's cruelty and her selfishness, it was probably shone in a good light in the past, right? There's something we're missing it can't just be a truthful showcase of female behavior. Like I said, this guy is someone who's born in good times, and women wear the mask and say, I love you. And this guy worships women and says, there's no way that women could be like this. There's no way. So this story just doesn't make sense to me, right? There must be something missing. No, you incel. This is what women are. Have you ever talked to a woman? Okay. Now we'll end it here because I've made my point. The oldest versions of these fairy tales are the most harshest and they're the most truest to human behavior. That's why they are more important than the newer, cleaned off, versions of these tales. Okay, we'll end it here.